I'm with Eric Osiakwan of Chanzo Capital. Eric, you stole the show. That was a fantastic panel you just spoke on.
Thank you.
Eric's based in Ghana, looking at some of the venture capital opportunities out of Africa. So just share now some of the things we spoke about. Africa at the moment, an undeveloped market from a venture capital perspective. But let's hear a bit more about the opportunities you're seeing.
Well, as I try to point out, first of all, if you look at it from a demographics point of view, Africa is going to be the leading market in the 21st century. Today, Africa has 1 billion people. According to the UN, in the next 10 to 20 years, Africa's population is going to grow by 3.4 billion. So 1 in every 4 person on the earth is going to be African. The second important dynamics around it is that Africa is a very youthful population. It's about 70% of Africa's population is youthful.
Right.
So the workforce of the 21st century is going to come from Africa, right? So that's very important. And the second is that from an innovation point of view, you're seeing that Africa is beginning to thrust forward into the leading innovation destination on the continent. And I actually put it this way, that if you look at it, the innovation wave moved from Europe to Asia. In the last century, the innovation wave was in Asia, so we saw China, Asia and Southeast Asia and India and all this stuff. Now it's Africa's turn. So I say to investors, if you miss Asia, don't miss Africa. Africa is the Asia of the 21st century.
Great, well let's talk about some of your portfolio companies. Give me some examples of what you're investing in.
Right, so we've been done investments, first of all, in 5 countries that we believe that are leading the digital economy in Africa. They are the king's countries: Kenya, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Ghana, and South Africa. Of course, we invest in other countries as well, but obviously Africa has 54 countries, so you cannot do all of them, right? So we always say these are the 5 that are leading the digitization of the continent. And then there are 5 sectors that we believe there are a lot of opportunities. So financial technology, fintech, clean tech, educational technology, health tech, and agricultural technology. So these are the 5 sectors and 5 countries that we focus on. Right. In terms of our investment, we've invested in companies at an early stage and also in growth stage companies. So I'll give you 2 examples. Yeah. One of my early stage investments is a company called FinAccess in Kenya.
FinAccess?
FinAccess. Now this company used to be called Copa Credit. And they started by building a lending platform that sits on the back of a credit scoring algorithm. And the algorithm is developed based on your mobile phone purchasing, airtime, talking activity. So, one of the problems in Africa is that there's no credit history. So this is why credit and debit cards are hard to do in Africa. Okay. Of course, people don't have addresses too, right? So it's got to find people, much more have a credit history on them. Now these guys realize that because everybody has a phone and they use the phone a lot, the phone is a form of identity, right? 1, 2, they can take that phone they've taken that phone record and generated a credit scoring algorithm on the back of that. And then they have a lending system. So they're able to use your phone airtime purchase back and forth and generate an algorithm and generate a credit history. And then based on that, they lend to all these roadside businesses that you see in Africa. So suddenly that informal market becomes formal. And the reason I invested was this entrepreneur is a guy called Barkley Okale. I met him in Kenya. He sold, this was his third startup. He sold his second startup, took the money and started this because he couldn't get credit for his mom that had a roadside business in their village. But he said, but my mom buys and sells stuff and she's got a record. She uses her phone airtime to buy and sell. So this was amazing that somebody's age 26 could do this. So anyway, that's one of my companies. And that company, I believe what they provide now is we've moved to become FinAccess. And we've moved from being a lending service to a lending platform. So now all the micro institutions that want to provide lending can then use our platform to generate the credit history, provide the lending, and then we have a software system where they can manage, the businesses can use the system to manage their business. So we are now an end-to-end solution for roadside businesses.
Just before we go on to another company from your portfolio, is this a company that you can see exporting its technology being used in the West? I mean, everything you're talking about, I can see being applied in the UK or in Europe.
Exactly. So one of our theses is that such companies can become global players because they started by solving an inherent African problem, but you can extend it to the rest of the world. As I said, this builds on top of mobile money. Now, mobile money was non-existent 20 years ago, but today mobile money is coming into the West from Africa. Right?
And Africa was very much a pioneer in this.
In mobile money, right? So you're going to see more and more innovations coming from Africa that becomes global and goes to the global north. Right. And this is why I'm very optimistic about these entrepreneurs building very cool stuff that solve African problems, which are global in extension.
Okay, portfolio company number 2, example.
So the second company is a company called Haptel. This company started in Ghana as a mobile value-added service provider. And they essentially provide the non-voice services on mobile. So SMS-based, for example, messaging. They provide a USSD interface for two-way interaction. They have a content platform. And this company, I happened to be an advisor when they started, and the company went cash flow positive in the second year, they went profitable in the third year. The company is now expanded into 3 more African countries. So they're in Ghana now, they're in Kenya, they're in Nigeria, and they're in Cameroon. This year, the company is on target to make $20 million in revenue.
Not bad.
Now, what is interesting, I mean, it's amazing, right? And this company has been around for the past 12 years. And these were Ghanaian entrepreneurs who started in Ghana right out of college.
Okay, excellent.
Right. So you have a situation where entrepreneurs from Ghana are able to take their destiny to your own hand, and this is a very important paradigm. Right. The paradigm that the Africa Generation Z are beginning to realize that we can leverage mobile to solve African problems by building businesses, which is a little bit of a different paradigm from when I was going to school. When I was going to school, being an entrepreneur wasn't an in thing. Actually, when I started being an entrepreneur, my dad didn't know that I started a company. He thought I was working for a company because it wasn't an in thing. But today, in Africa, it's been an in thing for a guy who's out of college, or even some who haven't even gone to college, but have learned how to build business by writing software to start exhibiting their entrepreneurial approach.
Okay, so I've got a question for you. GCV, we got conferences every year in London, in California, Hong Kong, Israel, Houston, Helsinki. When do you think we should be doing our first conference in Africa, and where? Where would be the right place to do a conference on venture capital, corporate venture capital in Africa?
Well, I think that you already missed it. You should have done it some years back, but now it's still the best time. And I think the sooner you do it, the better. Okay. Because if you look at the corporate venture wave as well, it's happening in Africa. I mean, Merck has an incubator and accelerator in Africa. You saw the example from GE Ventures. They already invested in a company in Africa.
Energy company.
Energy company. Bosch talked about the investment they did. So a lot of the guys that you're targeting are beginning to go into Africa. So I think this is the right time for you to start doing an event in Africa and then get into the market. I would say among the King's countries, one of them will be ideal for you to start. Kenya, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Ghana, or South Africa. One of those would be good because those are the markets where there's a lot of digitization happening. I'm happy to help in whatever way I can to get this amazing event there. And I thank you very much, and to James, because interesting, James, he actually figured me out. He, out of the blue, wrote to me and said, Eric, would you like to come to our event last year?
Good.
To speak at the event in Monterey, because he wanted somebody to represent Africa, because he had started seeing this wave happening in Africa, and that's how I came to the event. And then this year, he invited me to now be on this panel to talk about frontier markets. So I think that you guys are getting the research right. You're picking it up.
We found you.
It's time to act on it.
Well, I look forward to that first conference in Africa. We don't know when. Maybe 2018 is going to be a struggle, but 2019 is something we should definitely try to do.
We got a year to plan it.
Yeah, okay.
And that should be possible.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you very much.